Hello, fabulous people. Oh my gosh. So I have to do a show on Roy Moore because I'm listening to the mainstream media and it's just so frustrating to hear the way that they're projecting this story or presenting this story, shall I say. Now listen, the Roy Moore situation is a serious scandal, and honestly, Roy Moore went on TV today and made the situation worse. He is being accused of having basically an inappropriate sexual interaction with a 14-year-old. And then also being accused of hitting on teenage girls when he was like 32 years old. This is what he's being accused of. So he goes on and does this interview with Sean Hannity, and he makes the situation exponentially worse. And the thing is, the mainstream media is only covering the part where he says that they falsely, the whole thing is a false accusation, that it's a smear tactic, that he patently, denies these accusations. That's all they're covering. What they're not covering are the salacious details in his actual interview with Sean Hannity. I'm going to play half of that interview because I want you to hear what he says here, and then I'm going to comment on the things that he said. But the things that he says in here, in this interview, are so damaging that I don't understand why it's not being covered. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to do it today because I want to make sure that people understand that this is a serious situation. There are serious allegations against this man, serious allegations. So it's important that people understand that he might have substantiated these allegations by the things that he was saying in this interview. And if you don't have that context, you're just going to take what the mainstream media says, well, it's just her word against his word. No, it's not really just her word against his word anymore when you listen to what he said. So here is what he said. Half of the interview, I'm going to play it right now from Sean Hannity. Here it is.
Judge, let's talk about, first you're now reading it. I know you put out a number of statements, but I think we should address it head on. What do you make of these allegations?
Well, Sean, first let me say this. These allegations are completely false and misleading. But more than that, it hurts me personally because, I'm a father. I have one daughter. I have 5 granddaughters, and I have a special concern for protection of young ladies. This is really hard to get on radio and explain this, and these allegations are just completely false.
What do you make specifically? Let's start with what they talked about, that you had struck up a conversation with this young woman who was 14, Lee Kaufman, and her mother says that you offered to watch the girl while the mother went inside for a custody hearing, which they confirmed had actually happened at that time. Do you know Miss Kaufman? Do you know the mother?
I don't know Miss Kaufman from anybody. I've never talked to her, never had any contact with her. Allegations of sexual misconduct with her are completely false. I believe they're politically motivated. I believe they're brought only to stop a very successful campaign, and that's what they're doing. I've never known this woman or anything. With regard to the other girls, you understand this is 40 years ago, and after my return from the military, I dated a lot of young ladies. I do recognize, however, the names of 2 of these young ladies, Debbie Wesson and Gloria Thacker, which they have a maiden. That's their maiden name.
Well, let me just give the details. Debbie Wesson Gibson says she was 17 when you spoke to her high school civics class and asked her out on several dates, and it did not progress, her words, beyond kissing, according to the Washington Post. Let's stay on her. Did that happen?
I do not remember speaking to a civics class. I don't remember that. I do not remember I seem to remember knowing her parents. I can remember that they were friends. I can't recall specific dates because that's been 40 years, but I remember her as a good girl. But neither of them have ever stated any inappropriate behavior. She didn't say anything that
she said, but do you remember ever going on a date with her? She said that you asked her out on the first of several dates, but nothing progressed beyond kissing.
I don't remember specific dates. No, I do not. And I don't remember if it was that time or later, but I do not remember that. No.
But you know her, but you never dated her ever. Is that what you're saying?
Know her, but I don't remember going out on dates. I knew her as a friend. If we did go out on dates, then we did, but I do not remember that.
What about Gloria Thacker Deason? Says she was an 18-year-old cheerleader when you began taking her on dates that included bottles of Mateus Rosé wine. She's 18 at the time. The Alabama drinking age at the time is 19. Did that ever happen?
No, because in this county, it's a dry county. We never would have had liquor if I would never. And I believe this, she said that she believed she was underage. And she, as I recall, she was 19 or older. And that just never happened. I've never provided alcohol, beer, or intoxicating liquors to a minor. That'd be against the law, against anything I would have ever done. And I seem to remember her as a good girl. I seem to remember that I had some sort of knowledge of her parents or her mother, very in particular.
At that time in your life, let me ask you this. You do remember these girls. Would it be unusual for you as a 32-year-old guy to have dated a woman as young as 17? That would be a, 15-year difference, or a girl 18. Do you remember dating girls that young at that time?
Not generally, no. If I did, I'm not going to dispute anything, but I don't remember anything like that.
But you don't specifically remember having any girlfriend that was in her late teens even at that time?
No, I don't remember that, and I don't remember ever dating any girl without the permission of her mother. And I think in her statement, she said that her mother actually encouraged her to go out with me.
Well, actually, there was one, a 14-year-old that was working as a Santa helper when you approached her, and when she was 16 and her mother forbade her. That was the third case. Let me go back to Korfman for a minute here, because this is the issue here. She gives specific instances where the first that you met her at the courthouse, you got her phone number, you talked to her on the phone, and on that you drove her 30 minutes from her house to the woods and where you lived, and you kissed her, and on a second visit you took off her shirt, pants, removed your clothes, touched her bra, underpants, and you guided her hand to touch him over your underwear. Now those are specific charges she's making. And I think, obviously it's about a month away from this election campaign.
Yeah.
Are you staying? Is it your position? None of that ever happened.
It never happened, and I don't even like hearing it because it never happened. And they're doing this a month away, 4 weeks away, after 40 years in public service. I've run 5 successful campaigns, statewide campaigns, 3 in the county. This has never been brought up. It has never been even mentioned. And all of a sudden, 4 weeks out, they're bringing it up. They're bringing it up because it's political. It's a direct attack on this campaign, and it involves a 14-year-old girl, which I would have never had any contact with, nothing with her mother or in a courthouse or anywhere else would I have done that. In fact, her allegations contradict the whole behavior pattern that the 2 of the young ladies even witnessed herself.
You mentioned you'd never go out with any young girl. I assume you meant like when you were 32 at that time of your life. Would you always ask the permission of the parent before you would take a girl out?
Well, I mean, I'm saying that in their statements that they made, these 2 young girls said their mothers actually encouraged them to be friends with me. And, that's what they said. I don't remember. I wasn't privy to their conversation, but obviously we never had any sexual activity. There was never anything like that, and the behavior was altogether appropriate, according to them.
I got to take a break. We'll come back more with Judge Roy Moore.
Okay, so you heard that, right? You heard the entire interview, and you can tell he is a predator. Period, point blank. And I don't give a flying fuck if he's had 5 campaigns and none of this has ever come out. That does not negate the fact that it could have happened. And the thing is, this is the things that he said in there. So let's just be very abundantly clear. He said young girls many times. But the first thing he said is that after the military, he dated a lot of young ladies. Okay, now he makes it clear ladies at this time, right? But then he says one of the girls that's in the story, in the Washington Post story, that he remembers her, that he might have even been friends with her parents. Are you serious? Like you're friends with her parents, but you're having like a friendship and relationship with her? Okay. Then he says he doesn't really remember specific dates, like going out on dates with these girls. But if they did, then they did. But he doesn't remember any specific dates. Okay. Then he said that the girl that claimed that he was drinking with, they were drinking together, that he remembers her, that, first of all, the area was a dry town, but he also remembers that she was maybe even the legal age at the time. So you remember probably drinking with her then, that means. And she's telling you she was underage at the time that happened. So he's corroborating some of the stuff that came out in this particular story. That's what he's doing in this interview. He also says, when he's asked, do you generally date basically like teenagers? Do you date young girls? He says, not generally, no. But if he did, he wouldn't dispute it. Wait, what? So which means you probably have dated young girls. And if one comes out that says, yeah, we dated, and maybe she comes forward with some proof and some pictures or something like that, then you'll admit it then? But you're not denying that you had these relationships with young girls. He even says that if he were to ask a girl out, he would get the permission from her mother first. Now, let me just say this. That might be a Southern thing, some like Southern respect thing where you ask permission of like an adult woman's parents to take the girl out. That might be true, right? Kind of not. Not believable. The thing is, if you wanted to take out a girl who was underage, then you would need the permission of the mother if you're 32 years old, of course, right? That would make sense. You would need the permission of the parent because that is allegedly child abuse. I mean, at least that's what we used to consider it. I don't know. Maybe we just no longer have any morals left. But this is what he's saying. And he even said that the two young girls, that's what he said, the two young girls said that their mother had encouraged them to have a friendship with him. Why the fuck would their parents want them to have a friendship with a 32-year-old man? Which means, and these girls are saying in the story that he kissed them and touched them, okay? But it didn't get into penetration. But yes, he did make sexual advances towards these women. That's what he did. And he's not legitimately disputing it. Many times he said young girls. One time he said young ladies. Okay, so the thing is, he understands there is a distinction. A lady and a girl are different. A lady is able to consent. A girl is not. And he's legitimately having relationships with 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds stuff when he is 32 years old. How can this possibly be the nominee for any seat anywhere in the entire country, let alone the Senate? Okay? I mean, just think about what this guy's saying. He doesn't remember whether or not he went on these dates with these girls, but he could have. It could have happened. Like, most people who aren't pedophiles are going to be like, I would never go on a date with a teenager. I am too old to be on a date. Like, I'm 32 years old and I would never go out with a 16-year-old. That's what most rational, normal, non-pedophilia type pedophile, would do. Okay. And then he says he might have taken these girls on dates. You were taking 16, 17-year-olds, maybe even a 14-year-old on a date? That's what you were doing at 32 as a attorney? I'm an attorney. I'm appalled. And then he says, that, the girl he doesn't remember the girl being underage, but the town was dry. And so the town, okay, so because there wasn't liquor in the town, you didn't have liquor on you at all? But you remember that the girl might have been of age at the time. At the age of what time? At what time? When you guys were drinking together? The time when she said that she was actually underage? And then you would have to go ask for permission from these people's mothers in order for you to be able to date them? Why would you need permission if the person was like, let's just say 24? Aren't they just going to be able to date you? I mean, it's one thing to ask for their hand in marriage, but you're going to have to ask for permission. And then when he was asked, would you ask for permission every time you would date a girl? He's like, well, that's what these girls are saying. That I asked their parents for permission and that even their parents said that they should be friends with me. Really? So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'm unequivocally supporting the idea that he did this to that 14-year-old girl. Because everything he has said in here, all he did was he basically admitted to some things he thought he might get busted with, but he didn't admit to the things that might invoke some kind of criminal conduct. So what he doesn't dispute is his relationship with young girls. If every single person who endorsed him does not retract that endorsement, you are indisputably supporting pedophilia. That's what you're supporting. What you just heard was the conduct of a pedophile. And if you think that this is and he even said in the second part of that interview, which the second part of the interview, he starts contradicting himself because they take a break, this long break, and then all of a sudden they come back to the break and he's like, it's against my customary ways to date young girls. I would, I know it's wrong to abuse young girls and stuff, but I never did that and stuff like that. That's what he's saying after the fact. But this is after they take a long break and they probably were like, you're fucking up and you are looking very culpable. But the thing is, it doesn't negate the things that he said here. He still said these things right here. You can come back, you can try to retract, but you said it consistently, young girls. And you weren't even disputing the fact that you knew some of them. I mean, is this what we've become? Is this legitimately okay? This has nothing to do with partisanship. He's a detestable human being, has always been a detestable human being. But if he had won the election fair and square, even with the things that I think are detestable, I would have been like, he's detestable, Alabama, you're a joke. But I would have been like, he won the election. But now this is no longer about just like, seriously, this is about a guy who was claiming that he had relationships with teenage girls when he was an adult man in his 30s. This is not acceptable at all, irrespective of political affiliation. This is about pedophilia. This is about molesting children. This is about child abuse. This is despicable conduct. He cannot be elected to the Senate, period, point blank. And I'm not going to let the mainstream media just say he's denying the allegations, but people are still supporting him. That's not the argument anymore, and it shouldn't be. The argument should be that he's admitted some of the allegations. He admitted some of these things transpired, that he had relationships with young girls. But he says the one that was 14 was patently false, and that it was a smear campaign. But the lead of the story should be the fact that this guy is admitting that he had relationships with young girls, period, point blank. That's the story, period. And the truth is, Roy Moore just buried Roy Moore. Even if he gets elected in the Senate's got a huge problem on their hand because they're going to have to expel him. You cannot have an alleged pedophile, an admitted pedophile. I had these relationships with young girls. I did have these relationships with young girls. You cannot let an admitted pedophile into the Senate. But if you decide to do that, GOP, I'm warning you right now, 2018 is not going to be just a bloodbath. It's going to be a decimation like you have never seen. Get this guy out of your party. Get him away from the Senate and do it, damn it, now.